I'm going to start with the theme here. Alrighty. So, starting off a new podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Super Kaiju Podcast. With me, I am Mad Matt. With me is Bill, otherwise known as either the Man in Black or Writer in Black.
How's it going, guys?
And we also have another Matt, Burkett.
What's up?
Yeah. Okay, I didn't slaughter it. Yay! Ooh. Me and names. No. So, alrighty. So we got, so since we're starting off a new podcast, I figured the best way to at least get started off on it was to have us actually introduce ourselves a little bit more and also, like, say, cover where we got started, what we've been doing as fans of giant monsters and so forth in general, tokusatsu type stuff. So, anyone else want to start first, or shall I?
Go for it.
Alrighty. Gosh, where to start? I guess my first bit of giant monster / tokusatsu stuff was actually Godzilla, of course. I think it was on cable. TNT used to air a lot of Godzilla, as I recall, at one point. And I'm thinking it was either Godzilla vs. Mothra or Godzilla vs. King Kong was my first movie.
Nice.
Obviously since then I've been still Was that Bill?
Never mind. I'll save it for my part.
Yeah. Since then I have not done anything quote unquote professionally, but I do have a collection of movies. I also collect seasons. I have 2 seasons of Ultraman stuff. I have 2 other shows that are kind of obscure. I have Iron King, and I also have Red Baron, which is a giant red robot show. I do occasionally watch subtitled stuff that's not released in the United States. I have been watching a little bit of Zoo Ranger here and there. I also have been trying to get the time to watch the original Kamen Rider, as well as Kamen Rider Black, whenever I can. I believe I still have a little bit of Black that's on my hard drive yet.
The way you say it makes it sound like your hard drive just needs to be wiped off.
No, actually I do need to clean it. I have way too many games on here. But other than that, the only other thing I've really done with this, other than trying to make this podcast happen, is that I also have done a number of reviews. I have reviewed 2 of the 90s movies. I then decided to go backwards to the beginning and start fresh from there, and continue to review periodically some of the Godzilla and Toho movies. I think in total for Toho I've done about 4 or 5 reviews. I did a 2-part review for the original Ultraman, a 2-part review for Iron King, and this was back in my early heydays.
And directly after the 2-part Ultraman was an Ultraman movie.
Yes, I did an Ultraman movie because I introduced my brother-in-law to Ultraman at that point. I also have since then corrupted a couple of my friends into watching Ultraman. One of which actually went, hey, if you ever find a box set, give me a jingle, I'll come over and pay for it. I found him a box set. So he has original Ultraman too, so... I have Ultraman, I have Ultraman Ultra 7. I believe I've heard Ultra Q is out. I need to find this. Must find this. Must put this on the wish list.
I think it's out. I think Shout Factory.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing. That's what I was hearing. I think Shout Factory. Shout Factory's got its hands on a lot of really good stuff lately.
Yeah, they do really good work. Though I think that one wasn't it the one that a bunch of fans, like hardline fans, were like, "Oh, I'm not gonna buy this because it wasn't licensed by Subaraya, but it was licensed by that other company that they've had that
constant on and off fight with.
Yeah.
I've heard that's a rumor, but I also heard that there's nothing definitely for sure saying that they're making any kind of money off of it either.
Gotcha.
So, the fight continues.
Yeah. Indeed.
But hey, I'm for paying money to anyone who's actually got the guts to willingly post this stuff in the United States on DVD.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, you gotta scramble. I mean, to get that kind of stuff. I mean, it's definitely better than bootlegging it.
I don't know how much of it we're going to get. Did you guys hear that in about... Well, they're starting an online streaming channel for Tokusatsu in Japan, and that in about a year or two, they plan to make it available in the U.S.
Yeah, Toei.
Yeah, they're like they might stream it at the same time as new episodes, but with subtitles as well.
Oh,
amazing.
That'd be crack. Let me find a vein.
Supposed to go for like $20 a month too, which is pretty affordable.
$20 a month. Ooh, that's binding like half my monthly money, man.
And I think that's what I spend on Netflix, but I would probably go for that too.
I already clenched extra money on my folks just so I could get BBC America and the Hub. The Hub was an extra I didn't know was coming, but BBC America, I gotta get that stuff, man.
So you just paid the extra so you could get the My Little Pony and the Doctor Who is just a bonus.
Doctor Who, what else is on there? Top Gear, British Top Gear is an excellent show. The guys are hilarious.
Oh, well.
Men in their 50s acting like 5-year-olds.
Yeah. I watched an episode. They were talking about cars. They might as well have been speaking not Japanese because I understand a smattering of Japanese.
It depends upon what season you're looking at. If that's like the early seasons, it was probably pretty dry. But if you get to like their specials and the later seasons, they went into the South, and one of the challenges while they were in Southern America was, now you are going to make a design on your enemy's car, and this is to try and get them to be shot.
You realize when you said the South, I thought you meant Cardiff, right?
No. South America, southern half of North America. And the idea was that you're supposed to like write a message that could, and I quote, get them shot by hillbillies. And yeah, they were actually at a point where they actually had to put down the cameras and run for their lives. They spooked up the South. They had to literally pour out their sodas and wash stuff off their cars so they wouldn't get followed.
Cranky, these rednecks are a bit stroppy.
Well, they thought it was just good humor. Yeah, the Americans. Yeah, crazy South people. Yeah, and then they met the crazy South people and they're like, oh, this is for real. Oh God.
Now I'm tempted to do that.
Hi, Southerners. Reeling it back around. Prepare for me and Bill to get way off topic a lot. We have another podcast for Doctor Who, and I don't think there's a single episode where we stay on topic.
Depends on how you define topic.
Yeah, we can wear the line for what's on topic very thin. It's becoming an art form now.
Like if it's interesting to people who are fans of the thing that the episode is about, it's on topic. We're talking about Godzillas, and the fans want us to hear about, I don't know. I should have thought of an example before starting that sentence. There's an echo somewhere.
Want us to talk about the mole people.
Give a 45-minute lecture on Japanese history while talking about Rodin. Why not?
But yeah, as I was reeling it way back around just trying to find out where I've branched off again. Oh yeah, let's talk about the stuff I have reviewed a bit. I've reviewed a bit Toho. I've reviewed a little bit of Ultraman and a couple other little things. My most recent one, I believe Matt will attest to, as well as that I did a review of War of the Gargantuas.
Yep.
By the way, still love that movie.
Good movie.
I every time I do a kaiju film, I have to also show it to my buddy Mike, who still lives here in town. And yeah, we usually pretty much mesh on this.
And
good movie, yay! We'll make a little few comments, but hey, good movie.
I don't remember offhand from your video, did you mention any of the differences between the English and Japanese versions of that movie?
Actually, there aren't that many.
Well, the main difference, it's basically they change a few words around. Which
yeah, I did mention a few little tweaks that they did make.
Like, the main difference being that one is a clear sequel to Frankenstein Conquers the World.
Whereas the American dub got rid of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did mention that.
Even the original Japanese one still kind of retcons.
It was loose, but they called them Frankenstein.
Yeah, they still call them Frankenstein, and they did still reference things that happened in the previous film. So, yeah, they retconned it a little bit, but it's still a pseudo-sequel, even though they recreated things. But yeah, I still enjoyed it. It's a fun little mashup, and we got to see the laser cannons for the first time.
The masers, you mean, right?
Yeah, the masers. I never remember what they called those things.
That became a Toho mainstay after that.
Yeah, it took like maybe one or two movies, and they're just like, you know what, people don't mind it. Keep using them.
I'm pretty sure they're still appearing. Hopefully they appear in the next Godzilla movie.
I know they appeared in Power Wars in a couple different versions.
I mean, they don't work on Godzilla ever, but it'll be good to see them, like an old friend.
Oh, I don't know. We managed to use them to bury Godzilla in ice. It worked once.
Shooting at the ice isn't the same.
It is if you manage to pull a lever while yelling like a man. Boy, just referencing things that people will probably not get. Yay.
By the way, my whole thing I'm talking about the masers is I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure it was one of the Millennium Era Mechagodzilla movies where half the plot revolves around the fact that someone didn't fire a maser at Godzilla, and I spent the entire time like, if she had shot it, it wouldn't have affected him. So why does anybody care?
Mm-hmm.
It could have done something. Then again, it could have just made a whale appear out of nowhere.
You know what it would have done?
Falling next to a plant of...
I can tell you exactly what it would have done. Have you guys seen the late, what was it? Survival of Atop the Fourth Wall live?
No.
The last one? No,
one of the recent live shows?
Oh. I watch them when I can, but
gotcha.
not always.
One of them was a Godzilla comic, and the military said they were not going to fire at him, then decided to fire on him anyway, which basically just pissed him off enough to come and break a bridge that he was going to ignore. That's what shooting the maser at Godzilla would have done.
You could have pissed him off and made him do more damage that he wouldn't have done already. Thanks. But yeah, I think that basically covers my work on this, so which one of you two wants to go next?
Bill, go for it.
Alright. Well, actually, I think my first actual memory is of watching Goldar fight against the Megazord. So you can kind of tell where my history with Toku and Kaiju kind of started there. And beyond that, one of the laundromats we went to as a kid, for whatever reason, was playing a different Showa-era Godzilla movie every time we went to do laundry. So I kind of grew up on that. After that, it pretty much wasn't really until like 2007 or 2008 when I actually started searching the stuff out intentionally, to watch as much of it as I could once I started getting heavily into Netflix and everything else. I did run a short-lived kaiju show, Daikaiju Disaster Control. Don't look it up because it wasn't very good. But I did.
All right.
I did about I think 5 or so video reviews of Godzilla movies. I did about the same number of text reviews of Godzilla movies the year before. Other than that, I've done some collaborations with Matt on Godzilla stuff, and not just Godzilla and Kamen Rider stuff.
Yes, I believe we did a review of the first 2 episodes of Kamen Rider, and we also did Kamen Rider the first.
So you're pretty much the one who pushed me into watching Kamen Rider. I was iffy about it just because I didn't want to get into another show with such a long history, which you can. I mean, I haven't really watched more Kamen Rider or much more Sentai just because there's so much of it, and it's hard to know the best places to pick up, especially if you're not watching it straight day after day, which I'm not right now.
I know a few places with certain things.
I've been watching Ranger bit by bit, not very quickly, and whatever Godzilla movies I got my hands on. Recently bought a Gamera box set, so I've been watching those. And of course, when I come across independent kaiju and such, I definitely try to pick that up, for a change of pace here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much about my history with Tokusatsu and Kaiju. We did the Pacific Rim podcast earlier this year.
About a month or so ago, yeah.
Which was pretty successful. Drew a bit of viewers.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, otherwise, I've pretty much just been doing our Doctor Who podcast with Matt and getting ready for my writing / other things blog that I'll be opening up in January. I've pretty much just been making content for that for the past year, so I've been pretty quiet other than the podcast online lately, but that's definitely going to be changing in January.
Well, podcasts are an easy way to keep busy once in a while.
Yeah. And it's also, I love podcasts like this because, for example, I'm assuming at this point that both of you have more familiarity with Toku and Kaiju than me. I'm not saying I'm a complete slacker, but...
I can probably guess, yeah.
Either of your league in terms of that, but the thing about a podcast like this, give it 6 months from now, and we won't be on exactly level ground, but we'll be enough where I'll be a lot, I'll be happy. I'll have learned a lot just from our conversations, and you guys probably will have too. It's the type of thing to push people to go out and see new movies, and I, definitely enjoy stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and also warn them against the turds. I'm sure those will pop up eventually.
Yeah.
There's a couple I can think of off the top of my head that I actually own, sadly enough.
The thing is, I enjoy watching terrible, cheesy...
Well, don't get me wrong, some of this stuff, even the good stuff, can be horrible and cheesy, but then there's stuff that's just plain simple bad. But that's another topic.
So we're talking Gigantus the Fire Monster, then?
That's pretty bad.
The dub was pretty damn bad.
Yeah, I mean, Godzilla Raids, again, wasn't a great movie to begin with.
And then they just made it worse.
Yeah. So.
I will keep my mouth shut on that.
Banana oil.
Yeah, guys, go. Well, he did a recent, kind of recent vlog on, I think it was just a Japanese version, right?
Yeah. That movie probably stands as one of the, at least my all-time least favorite Godzilla movie ever to be made. It's slow. It's boring. It doesn't really do anything. It doesn't add anything to the mythology. It's just...
Other than Anguirus, but even Anguirus hardly does anything.
I haven't watched the Smog Monster in a few years, but given what I've seen, I would agree with you.
At least with Smog Monster, something was going on. You had like this really cool, weird monster.
Oh, he wasn't the Smog Monster was also a long acid trip with fish head people, wasn't it?
Oh,
yes.
It totally
so
was. The guy who directed it is insane.
So
And he's also one of the lead producers for the next Godzilla movie. Aren't you happy?
Oh yeah, yeah. But let me feign my smile on that one.
and I think that brings it to you.
Yeah, I'm Matt Burkett, the guy who doesn't like Pacific Rim. I grew up literally like right out of the womb. My very first stuffed animal was a Godzilla, which I still have, and it's actually sitting not far away from me right now. My first movie ever that I saw in theaters was Godzilla 1985. No, I don't remember it. And
I have it.
throughout my lifetime, I was fortunate enough to grow up with things like Ultraman Towards the Future, and then Power Rangers, and then VR Troopers, and Saban's Masked Rider. And of course, that led to
He was,
the internet.
You heard that, guys, right? He was fortunate enough to grow up with Saban's Masked Rider.
Hey, you know what? Had I not
Shall we
seen
lynch
that
you now,
show,
or shall we
much
lynch you
like
later?
a lot of other people, they wouldn't know a damn thing about Kamen Rider
I feel you there. I feel you.
at all. So anybody who bashes those shows, I really kind of got to ask. It's like, you're just bashing it now because that's the cool thing to do. But anyways, so yeah, that I've been collecting over the course of my life, and made a sizable collection. I do a vlog called Monstrosities, which we cover everything and anything related to tokusatsu, and just have had a blast doing it. We recently just celebrated our 1-year anniversary, and we are ongoing. So
I've been meaning to ask, is Monstrosities posted on on an actual site, or basically just a YouTube channel, or what?
It's primarily a YouTube channel. We are hosted over at Geek Vision, mostly just because I love all the people over there, and I'm good friends with Zach.
I'm friends with a few people over there.
Yeah, dude, they got a great talent pool, and even if it's not just the talent, the people there are just a lot of fun. But primarily just YouTube. I mean, we don't advertise anywhere else besides like Twitter and Facebook, and get posted on that site. So. It's a lot of fun. Really dig talking about this stuff, and it's always cool stuff. And silence ensues.
So yeah, that you were really quick. So yeah, I'm gonna pull up just for something to talk about. I'm gonna pull up this image on the screen.
Because he knows if he talks for a long time, he'll upstage both of us as probably being far more popular than both of us without having to.
No, not at all.
He's not worried about being proven to be the bigger nerd or anything there.
Oh, yeah. I'm not a nerd at all. Let me just go over here to my Bandai collection. All the girls love them some Minya action figures. But, anyways, yeah.
Jet Jaguar, bitch. Jet Jaguar.
Yeah, there you go.
There's one that everyone needs to know about. The Ultraman ripoff that happened inside the Godzilla franchise.
Right.
And made absolutely no sense.
I think it has the same origin as the Absorbaloff, doesn't it?
Sort of.
Oh, you're thinking of Biolante.
Or am I thinking Biolante? Was it just Biolante or both?
No, actually,
Biolante.
Jet Jaguar was actually a kid thing too.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
You sure?
Yeah, that's what I heard. The kid that came up with Jet Jaguar wanted to combine some parts of Ultraman and some parts of another hero he liked. So they took the basic idea, re-scripted a few designs, and went, ta-da!
I'd have to go back and do some reading about that. All I know is that he was originally supposed to have his own solo movie, but they didn't think it was strong enough, so they put Godzilla in there.
Mm-hmm. There's that, and also he's my favorite character in the more recent fighting games.
And I still wish he had been the Japanese Jaeger in Pacific Rim, with it complete with theme song.
Complete with subtitles from Mystery Science Theater. Don't smile like that.
That would have been funny.
Oh. But no, they had the full 3D fighting games. There's like 3 of them. One, I believe, came out for GameCube and PlayStation. No, GameCube and Xbox. Then the other ones came out for GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox, and then Wii, PlayStation 2, and one of the Xboxes. And the middle one I liked the most.
Yeah.
The controls were just tight. The controls were just excellent and tight, and even though they add more characters in the next one, the controls weren't as good. But Jet Jaguar was always my go-to guy, and I rocked everybody.
Well, yeah, you're also the Ultraman guy, so that makes sense too.
I'm gonna hop over here, grow big, and then I'm just gonna stomp around in this location for a few seconds. Don't get near me, guys, and I'll kick your ass. And then they'll come try and charge me, and I'll cry chop them right in the face. And they go flying, stunned. And that's when you pull out the energy attack.
If you're karate chopping them in the face and they go flying, I think you might be doing it wrong.
Not if you're Jet Jaguar, you're not. That means you hit them right in the sweet spot.
Oh Lord.
I'm just trying to picture how, like, what direction you'd have to hit from to be performing a proper karate chop and have someone actually go flying. I mean, granted, I'm talking about this while we're talking about a character from a movie where Godzilla did a drop kick from like 3 miles away, flying horizontally.
Yep.
So, twice.
Twice, yes. And I still argue that's something you also don't see every day.
No, you don't. Well, I'm pretty sure something you don't see every day officially belongs to the scene of Godzilla flying with his breath.
Yep. I still argue that him flying doing a drop kick is something you definitely don't see every day. Because that one has no backing whatsoever. But yeah, that's the sole reason why I have a Jet Jaguar action figure and why I must have a DVD copy of Godzilla vs. Megalon, is because of that video game.
Jet Jaguar was a lot of fun. I really liked that movie as a kid. So, I mean, I think nowadays it's kind of like, whatever.
It's a bit silly, it's a bit cheesy, sure, but you know what? Giant
if,
robot. We finally got Giant Robot.
Yeah, these are movies are for the kids.
If Godzilla vs. Megalon came out now, I could see having some gripes with it, maybe, but just watch. Like if I were to just take the DVD off the shelf or off Netflix and watch it, I can't complain about that movie. It's just too much fun.
Yeah, I was really happy with the DVD that they put out last year. That was really, really, really cool.
Oh, they put out one last year?
Yeah, it's subtitled, uncut, beautiful print. They actually released it out on Blu-ray too, so.
Smeg, now I need to find this one. See, I have I think the copy I have is like 4 or 5 years old, and it's paired up with, what is it paired up with? It's paired up with Smog Monster.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, the cheese trifecta right there.
Yeah, it's nice to live in an age where, at one point in time at least, you could basically own every Godzilla movie with subtitles legally as opposed to buying it from a bootleg company.
Yeah, and they're definitely reaching that point.
I really hope that we see more releases, though, as we draw closer to the American release, just because some of these titles are out of print and get disgustingly...
What would be really nice would be to get a full box set of the full Godzilla series. I mean, don't get me wrong, it would probably be like $300 with special features, but that would be a nice box set to have for those who can get it, and obviously they would probably sell the DVD separately as well.
The problem with that is that everybody owns, different rights to the movies. Sony owns these movie titles.
Oh, you're saying the American distribution rights?
Yeah. I mean, they've already done that box set over in Japan, but Universal, I doubt we'll ever see the Japanese version of King Kong versus Godzilla.
I highly doubt that. Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because that is actually a pretty good movie.
I suppose Toho could be total dicks and release it as a Region 0 release and then sell it on eBay. But I don't think they're going to do that because...
I think people already do that.
Yeah, I won't be surprised if people already do that.
I'm just saying, the actual company making a Region 0 box set of every movie and selling it, I don't think they'd go through all of that.
I think they probably would be liable for a lawsuit then, probably, maybe.
Yeah, especially if we could link it right back to them.
If they made it available to American buyers.
Yeah. That's what my guess would be.
Yeah, it does raise kind of question. Like, yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. Like, certain things, like, will only be sold on the Asian version of a company website, even though that company is worldwide for reasons like that. So,
I mean, this company is so protective of their property. Did you read that story about them suing some brewery here in the United States because it was the drink that they were making was called like Mecca Beerzilla or something like that?
I didn't hear about that. No.
Yeah, I mean, and they've sued Subway a number of years ago because Subway had a Godzilla-like creature in a rubber suit in one of their ads.
I remember that. Like, they had a roaring commercial and whatever.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, Toho's pretty draconian, man. Like, they would never do anything to, I guess.
Speaking of copyrights and such, is Gamera public domain everywhere, or does that stake only happen in the United States?
As far as I know, Gamera is not under that anymore. Technically, Katawa owns it, and they're the ones that bought up Daiei when they went out of business. And I'm assuming that, again, it's not all public domain, even though you still see some of these movies appear in certain sets as public domain.
I know they're not doing anything to take it down.
I know for a fact that at least most of the Showa, if not all of the Showa era, is public domain.
Are they really?
Yes, as far as I'm aware.
Because
I believe this guy called Sandy Frank bought them up for a redubbing in the 80s, and since then he has dropped it like a bad habit. He's gone. Well, matter of fact, Mystery Science Theater was allowed to do their release their episodes now.
From what I heard, it became public domain due to a mistake by the rights holder. I think that was what Wikipedia said. Obviously questionable source, but that's what I saw there.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not really quite sure about that.
Yeah, and Sandy Frank, as you Mystery Science Theater pointed out, was kind of thick.
If it was by the Sandy Frank, that was the American distributor, so that would mean that it was only in America and probably still owned by whoever would own the rights in Japan then.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, we're not getting even American made. We're not getting Godzilla versus Gamera because the Japanese rights holders would have to.
Actually, they tried to pursue that. Katawa tried to pursue that when they first bought up Daiei, but Toho was like, "Go fuck yourselves."
To which they went, "Okay, fine, 90s Gamera trilogy later."
No, what they did was they went and made Gamera the Brave, which was awful.
Oh yeah, the one Millennium Era Gamera movie.
I've heard mixed bag on that one. I'd have to see it for myself.
Great special effects. It looks, I mean, it's shot very well, but it turns Gamera into a suicide bomber. Literally. It's really bad.
Yeah, if you're going to limit Gamera's abilities, then don't even bother.
Gamera's always kind of been the Rocky of Kaiju, but when, you make him so weak that his only defense is to basically blow himself up and your enemy too, it's kind of lame.
Yeah. Pretty much. I've been on a Gamera kick too because I also I may have convinced a certain convention I work at to show the entire trilogy.
Legally?
Legally, yes.
Really?
Yeah. I think we had to go through who are the people now? Mill Creek.
Damn, that's awesome.
We showed the entire trilogy, and actually the first two movies got very little people for whatever reason, but on Sunday, the third movie...
Word of mouth.
It just boomed on Sunday.
3's pretty awesome. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, by the way, for anybody who's actually watching who's watching the stream live or watching the video on YouTube, those Godzilla images that are in the center of the stream right now are inspired by diagrams from the Gamera DVDs that an artist made. So these apparently are fans doing a Godzilla version of that. I might be wrong. It's possible that it was by the original artist, but I would have to look that up. At the very least, one of those two is fan made.
Which reminds me, is anyone posting on the stream? No one's posting on the stream. No one ever posts anything on the stream.
Well, once in a while people post hello, but by the time I sign in to answer them, they disappear.
Yep. We might get some more traffic. Depends. Keep advertising our shows. Anyway. Actually, the podcasts have been doing amazingly well on my YouTube channel.
Nice.
Like I said, we were mentioning before, we did the Pacific Rim podcast about a month back. It's still in like my top 3 videos right now.
Excellent.
It took a couple days, but it all of a sudden just spiked.
By the way, Burkett, since you are not a fan of Pacific Rim, what would you say would be your top Millennium or newer kaiju film?
How newer is newer?
Anything. Well, I'm saying anything from Godzilla 2000 on.
Well, let me put it this way:
until
Pacific Rim has the best giant monster fights in at least the past 10 years. None of the Millennium series even compares. I mean, I think for the most part, the Millennium Godzilla movies were fairly lackluster. You have a couple of gems hidden in there, but nothing incredible.
Yeah.
I personally loved Final Wars, but I know a lot of people...
I enjoyed it, but I think Pacific Rim tops it.
And you know what? And fair enough, but my whole thing is that if you love Pacific Rim, then should be no reason at all for anyone to be bashing on Final Wars. Not saying that you have
and
or Matt has.
I
recall both of us helping you defend it on Twitter, so yeah.
Yeah, it's people unjustly just, oh man, that movie is so crap. The plot is just a ripoff of this and X-Men and whatever.
I've seen complaints that some of the monsters didn't get enough screen time, and I can support that to an extent. But obviously, when you have a movie like that, there have to be some sort of sacrifices made to get everything onto the screen that you want, and screen time is going to be one of those sacrifices.
I would have given my left arm to see a new version of Jet Jaguar. Literally, I remember one of my friends seeing a little silhouette on the cover of the DVDs and going, I think there might be Jet Jaguar in there. What? Let me see this now! Give me all your money! Here's all my money! Give me!
It's funny. Yeah, I honestly think a lot of G fans would have taken like another thing like Tokyo SOS over Final Wars. Why? I have no idea. That movie was boring as shit, but whatever. But going back to your question, Final Wars was fun. I have problems with GMK, but GMK is definitely one of the better ones, and that's Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, giant monsters all on attack.
I haven't watched that yet, but I have heard a lot of people recommend it.
It's overrated, but it's definitely one of the better ones.
Yes.
And honestly, the American release of Godzilla 2000, the dub, everything, I really enjoyed that. I thought they did a great job. They redid the soundtrack, so and not just like the music. I'm talking like all the sound effects and everything. Definitely makes it seem more Hollywood, I guess, if that makes any sense. So
they helped remix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, those would be 3 that I would recommend. I can't really necessarily recommend them above Pacific Rim, but I can still recommend.
I remember my only complaint about Godzilla 2000 was that the human plot didn't engage me as much as a Showa or Heisei era human plot would.
Yeah.
Like, when watching it, like, some people watching a kaiju movie are just like, get the people off the screen, we want to see the monsters fight. Normally, I try to watch, even if I feel like it's an A and B movie, I try to invest in both of them. I just could not invest in the human plot in that movie.
Totally. And you know what? Honestly, I can't invest in the human element in about 99.9% of Godzilla movies, which is one of the reasons why I love the Gamera trilogy, because you actually do kind of give a shit about the people involved.
Oh yeah, especially in the last one.
Yeah, the original Godzilla, Gojira. I liked the characters in that. There was actually human drama there and stuff. But when you look at things like Godzilla 2000, it really is lackluster, and you're only watching it to see, obviously, Godzilla fighting a whole bunch of monsters or destroying a city.
Destroying a city and fighting off the military, as usual.
And that's one of the reasons, too, why I get kind of, like, ticked off with fans who complain about, like, the dubbing of Godzilla 2000. They're like, oh, well, it should have been more serious and had less jokes. You know, if it was more serious, it would have just been a boring freaking movie, but at least with some lighthearted moments in there, you're like, oh, hey, he's speaking Yiddish or whatever. Which I think one of the guys does when he sees that giant flying saucer. He's like, Gott in Himmel, and he takes off running.
Depending on how broadly you look at the fan base, you're never really going to win because, I mean, like, you know, certain people are, you know, certain people want every movie to be serious, and obviously that destroys large swaths of the series, and certain people want every movie to be, you know, to be fun and none of them to be serious, and that also would destroy large amounts of the series. But having them both is what makes it particularly strong.
I'll be totally honest here, and I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for saying this. I do like you guys a lot, and I like all my friends over here in Arizona that are Godzilla fans, but for the most part, online Godzilla fans drive me up the effing wall.
Oh, the overly artistic asshole types? You mean?
No, just the fanboys that will just jump on the hating bandwagon, or, you know, it's when over here at in Phoenix we had a kaiju panel over at Phoenix Comicon. Phoenix Comicon's grown huge in the past couple years, but there was a panel that these two guys hosted that, you know, they're legitimately saying this. They were convinced that Pacific Rim was going to be a prequel to the 2014 Godzilla movie. Convinced, mind you.
Yeah, I remember seeing that video. By the way,
it's stuff like that where people kind of buy into that weird fantasy stuff really just, I'm like, what planet are you on? I don't know. That
was a head tilter.
No, I get you. Like every, and it's the thing. Like, depending on how you look at every fandom, has those groups like that, which is why I generally tend to find a group of like 10 people or less.
Yeah. And
they're the fandom as far as I'm concerned. The people that I can speak to on an equal level, agree with what they're saying. They're not psychotic. They don't think I'm an idiot. And we can actually have a level conversation even when we agree, even when we disagree.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, your fan fiction ideas, Bill, still make me head tilt.
Well, some of the ideas that I give you are specifically, you know, saying that I'm surprised someone hasn't taken this crazy idea and ran to the extremes with it. They're not all ideas that I would want to see. Some of them are just, you know, like I've specifically said, some of them are my brain trolling me, and I'm sharing it with you to get it out of my head.
To which we continue to go, why, Bill? No!
My brain trolls me a lot.
Oh, brains.
By the way, J.R.R. Tolkien is a guy who also invented a time machine. Believe me, it would answer so many questions. Oh,
brother.
And yeah, everything's a rip-off of COD.
There you go.
There, a COD Enlightenment Army joke. Suck it.
Oh,
God, those people also drive me crazy. Just thinking about it. Really?
What's that My Little Kaiju thing in the middle of the stream there?
Actually, now that you brought it up, I need a closer look at this too. Oh my god. It's both disturbing and cute. My Little Kaiju, friendship is mayhem. The Godzilla has a nuclear sign. There's an Anguirus, there's a Mothra. There's a Baragon. Baragon gets the short end of the stick too, by the way. There's a Rodan, there's a Ghidorah, whatever way you want to pronounce it. There's also so many pronunciations for that name too. Anyway.
So are you guys looking forward to Godzilla 2014?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm trying not to be pessimistic about it. I'm trying to focus on the positive aspects of it.
I am,
but I'm not getting my hopes up too much.
Yeah, I'm essentially tapping my foot, going, "Okay, it can come and go now." because I don't want to say that it's going to be disappointing, but at the same time, I've seen what America does to a lot of other franchises that aren't originally American.
I'm still kind of upset that Del Toro left Godzilla to go make Pacific Rim instead.
Del Toro was never on Godzilla, though.
No, supposedly, I mean, I forgot. I'm not sure. Like, supposedly he was supposed to either they were offering it to him and he was thinking about accepting it or something of that nature. I'm not sure what the details were, but he seemed to shoe in for Godzilla, and then they announced he was going to make Pacific Rim instead.
The only reason why he went to go make Pacific Rim was because he couldn't make At the Mountains of Madness, the H.P. Lovecraft thing.
Oh, that would have been awesome too.
I know for a while there was rumors that Pacific Rim they were going to take the script and use it for a Godzilla movie, like that was going to be integrated in there. But then I guess Warner's or Legendary, whoever, came out and said, "Oh, hey, no, they're two separate movies."
I've heard so many rumors, like that it was supposed to be about Evangelion, or that it was supposed to be about Monster Apocalypse, or that it was supposed to be something else, and.
Oh yeah, I've heard the Ava one a lot.
If all of the rumors were true, this was going to be the biggest crossover movie of all time.
Well, it pretty much was.
I mean, in a way it was, but it would have been literal if all the rumors were true.
Right.
Well, we had a kaiju that looked like it came right out of Gamera. We had another kaiju at the very end that roared like Godzilla. We essentially had Avas, although they had to be piloted by two people. Where else does the list go on?
I still wish, considering that there were exactly 5 mechs and they were all different colors, that they had managed to find a way to combine the mechs for one of the big fights.
Oh, they're going to use that for the sequel.
Woo! And I also wish that lightning had blasted when they pulled the sword out.
Because lightning in space makes all the sense in the world.
Well,
as much sense as that movie made, by the way.
They were in the sky.
They were still in the sky,
They were in orbit. Just about. They were so high up there, it was ridiculous.
A few seconds later, yeah.
It makes more sense than lightning creating a sword and putting it into your mech god's hands.
Zoo Ranger. Which reminds me, I need to finish watching more of that. I've only seen 4 episodes.
My problem is I watch TV shows while I'm doing other things, so I'm not usually looking at the screen. And when I do have time to look at the screen and look at subtitles, I usually watch a movie instead. So, like, imported shows and such tend to get the short end of the stick in that regard.
Maybe the show will fix that for you, Bill. Just maybe.
Yeah. Well, definitely, yeah. If we review any
if we start watching any shows
or anything, I'll definitely watch it. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Anywho, I think we've reached about the halfway point almost, so I think it's almost time to actually start talking about the topic we decided to go on, since we figured it would be short enough. We were going to go on about the original Godzilla film, Gojira, of course, in Japan, but also Godzilla, King of the Monsters in the United States, and what is it, Kojira?
Kozilla is essentially a nickname. Its actual release name was Godzilla, although the opening credits say Godzilla, King of the Monsters in Italian. You can call it Italian Godzilla, you can call it Kozilla. Calling it Godzilla gets it too confusing because it has the same name as Roland Emmerich's remake.
Yeah. Anywho, the original, the definitive, you know, where the huge spike actually first happened. Although there were other interesting things before then, but it's definitely where big monsters started for Japan. So, I would assume that no one has any real arguments against the original Japanese version, because it's the epic that started everything.
probably the most written about Godzilla movie ever. Period.
Right
You
down
can
to
probably
the
find out
facts.
what EJ Subaraya had for lunch on the third day of filming. That's how much is written about that.
And yet they can't come to a consensus about where the actual name came from because there's like 2 or 3 different stories that came out of the production.
Yep.
Right.
Well, if you have something that popular, do you ever want to get away where the name came from?
True.
If
So
it really was even a place that it did come from?
So we'll just call it Gorilla Whale. Leave it at that.
Gorilla Whale, let's go with it. Yeah.
Actually, I could just imagine if some distributor decided to take the name literally and put on a DVD Gorilla Whale and tried to sell it and wondered why no one bought it.
well, nowadays people would buy it because Roger Corman would be producing it for Sci-Fi. So
Actually, that's a point.
it'd be a total hit.
That's right with Sharknado 2.
Or it would be the Asylum version of the 2014 Godzilla.
Oh, I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
God, I bet you they're planning something. I guarantee you they're planning
pre-order that just to see what they do.
Actually, yeah, I'll watch them just to see if they do something.
Although then again, I heard Atlantic Rim was pretty terrible, so.
Well, that's hardly surprising. Mind you, this is the same people that made the Terminators.
Terminators.
Yes, seriously, they legally got away with it because they added an S.
Jeez. Gotta love it. But yeah, no, I totally agree that the original Godzilla is probably arguably the best of the series. I mean, in terms of movies, like I can say, Godzilla in the same breath as like Casablanca or The Godfather Part 2 as or Seven Samurai as being a legitimately good movie.
It's definitely in my top 10 films.
Well, it helps that it has like half the cast from Seven Samurai.
Oh yeah, I mean Toho bit players were. I mean, it's just like the Studio Star system. I mean, there's so many faces in Kurosawa movies and that appear in Godzilla and vice versa. Toei, early '70s stuff with Kamen Rider. I mean, people in there appear in those Godzilla movies. So
I keep swearing that I keep seeing people I know from somewhere else in some of those movies too.
You probably have.
There's like even like the 90s and early 2000s one, I keep seeing like a couple of faces here and there. I'm like, haven't I seen you in one of the other productions somewhere?
You more than likely have, man. They're all over the place. Lots of
Say, didn't I hear your voice say banana oil in a movie a while back?
Oh my.
Jeez Louise.
Oh, God. I just realized now if TK came out with a movie and they said the word banana oil, it would not be referring to that.
Oh no.
But yeah, the original is undisputed as probably the best. I don't know if it's overrated. I don't think it is. I think it's I don't know. I think it deserves the praise that it gets, but
there are people out there that claim that it's overrated.
I don't know. There's still a lot of shit out there in that movie that I've never really seen copied as well as the original movie ever did it.
Yeah. The original city destruction scene in there is just amazing.
Well, and I've got to say, this is something I missed the first few times I watched it, but ever since I did, I can't get it out of my head, the scene of the mother and the children.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you don't see many kaiju movie take that kind of perspective. You know what I mean? And there may be one or two other Godzilla movies that even do that. Like, I know Smog Monster showed civilians getting killed, but after that, I honestly cannot recall anything. Maybe Gamera 3?
Well, from what
Gamera 3, yeah. Gamera 3 to a point. It also showed a lot of people getting snuffed.
From what I heard, Godzilla 1985 was the next movie after the original, after the original film, black and white films, to show anything near civilian casualties on that scale. I haven't actually seen the actual Godzilla 1985. I've seen other Heisei era films, but not that one.
I actually have it on VHS, although I can't play it anymore because we don't have a working VCR.
84 is it's an interesting movie. It's kind of boring, but yeah, I mean it does go back to the original's tone. It's not nearly as powerful, nearly as interesting, but it's, I don't know, I would say it's one of the better ones out there. 85, the American version, is not very good, but I don't know. I guess it kind of has some value to it.
Did they make a lot of changes then, or
they redid a lot of things? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
scenes.
So they basically treated that the same way as the 50s Godzilla films.
More
Not
or less.
necessarily, actually. Not necessarily, because originally the 85 one was going to be a joke. They were going to redub the whole thing. Then Raymond Burr came on. He's like, "Yeah, if you want me to do this, you're going to treat this with some amount of respect." So.
Right. Oh, that's right.
From,
I forgot they added him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is officially a direct sequel from the original.
Yep.
Indeed.
Raymond Burr was the first Power Ranger. He was the first American to transform into Japanese footage.
I think the original Godzilla King of the Monsters is actually pretty good too. I always kind of...
I like it, but I don't like it nearly as good as the Japanese.
And I can agree with that. I just kind of cringe when people are like, "Oh, it's so awful compared to the original Japanese one."
Yeah, it's not completely god awful, but I have to say that you can't stop giggling a little bit when you suddenly go from these full-on shots of these main characters from the Japanese movie. Then all of a sudden you see Raymond Burr talking to them. All you see is the back of their head.
Right.
Yeah, but think about that. I mean, think about them doing that back in the 50s. I mean, that took a lot of effort, you know?
Yeah, I admit nowadays you can giggle at that, but back then, it probably cost them an arm and a leg just to get the sets looking right.
But I have to say, the one really weird decision they made with the editing is that some of the times, like, in the original, there'd be, like, straight-on scenes looking at Godzilla, and you could, obviously it would be a puppet or whatever, but they were dramatic enough that you didn't notice it. And then in the American, they kept cutting away like they were ashamed of it. And all that really does is make it feel more obvious that it's a puppet than it ever did before.
To a point,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think they treated it disrespectfully. I think they did it on purpose to try to obviously cater more towards a Western audience.
Mm-hmm.
And they obviously succeeded. It was a rousing success over here in the States, and then it was re-released over in Japan. I mean, Japan seems to love, the American cuts of certain movies. Like they released the original 54 over there, and the original Godzilla 2000 that we did too.
I can't remember for sure, but wasn't there some stuff of Raymond Burr for the original 1984 version?
Not the Japanese version, only the American version.
Must have been one of those old rumors.
But yeah, Burr was in 85, and it apparently had a very, very healthy respect for Godzilla. Really liked it, and at one point in time, I don't know if it was in 85 or 54, but he wanted to buy distribution rights or something from somebody, but it never came through.
Well, technically, Godzilla kind of put him on the map before he did stuff like Ironsides. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he always kind of played the heavy, before he was the bad guy, but then here he was elite man kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, he went on to become more of a protagonist, or trying to remember.
Perry Mason.
Perry Mason, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those two movies are definitely, I don't know. I think they stand as movies that deserve the term classic.
The only way I can see Godzilla King of the Monsters in a negative light is when I'm comparing it, and that's only because one is, a massive classic, one of my top movies of all time, where another has a lot of the dramatic scenes cut out to replace with something else and becomes a good movie, just loses a lot of the punch that the original had as a result. And that's really the only, and anything negative I say about it is really because of when I'm directly comparing them.
Right. But again, I got to say, how many people would have watched? I mean, if that
And
was
that's
released,
exactly
How many
Yeah.
people would have
subtitled
back in the day watched the
55,
subtitle version? You know.
No, nobody would have watched it. But the fact that they redubbed it, they doubled, quadrupled their money. I think at the time, I'm trying to remember, like it became the highest success of a foreign release back then. And beforehand, I think it was Seven Samurai. But even Seven Samurai, even though it was the highest grossing, it was still in terms of movie grosses at the time really small. But this one did sizable business. And I don't know about you guys, but I know that if I hadn't seen Godzilla 54 or Godzilla King of the Monsters, I probably wouldn't have seen Godzilla 1954.
And that's like I think it was it was probably Matt that I was Matt here that I was talking about with earlier about how Raymond Burr and Saban pretty much have a definite high place in terms of when you talk about tokusatsu history, because without those two names, Haim Saban and Raymond Burr, most America would probably, if you took either one of them out, America would generally have almost a tiny fraction of the interest in the genre that it does.
I agree with that, which is why I was defending Mass Rider before when you were talking about it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You can defend Mask Rider all you want. All I'll say is that even as a kid, I was kind of head tilting at the America parts.
Like I can't say that I know many people who saw Masked Rider and as a result thought that Kamen Rider would be a really great show and ran to watch it. Well, I'm sure that there are. I just haven't met many.
I always wondered where it came from. I'll give it that. I always wondered where that original footage came from.
And honestly, I'm probably the last person who should be talking about it because my knowledge of Masked Rider comes from that crossover two-parter, and that's it. So I did not watch. I watched VR Troopers, Beetleborgs. I did not watch Masked Rider.
As a kid, whenever like Tommy the Green Ranger would go out on his own and just fight the monsters just as the Lone Ranger, like I was always like, oh yeah, in VR Troopers, obviously because they were using different series, Ryan Steele was always like going off on his own. I'm like, yeah, the solo hero. And then finally here comes Masked Rider, and you have this single hero taking on these monsters rather than a team of 5 or 3 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the draw for me. I really liked that. Just the solo hero, taking on these guys and that guy. And
that's actually what draws me into actually the Kamen Rider itself, to be honest, after I've actually found out about it a couple of years ago.
Yeah. The final group of episodes of Masked Rider just blew my mind when they adapted the all the original Showa writers, like they all appear at the very end. They have these god-awful names that are mixed up and stuff. It's it was kind of cool, and it just kind of
they kind of acknowledged that there was the previous history.
Yeah. So I can't really recommend it to people nowadays because obviously there's much better stuff out there, but
go for the original subtitles.
Saban also the stuff that besides Black RX, the 2 other movies that he got a hold of, like Zeto and J, like I always recommend those to people. Like those are perfect as introductory courses to something like Kamen Rider or something.
We also showed Zeto at the convention this year.
Dude, Zeto is amazing. It's amazing. It is so well paced. It's a solid 45 minutes.
I believe that was also the last season I did as Mad Matt reviews before I went to Malice reviews.
Nice.
I have my own sort of pseudo Kamen Rider-esque costume where I have a bike helmet with big green bug eyes and everything.
When's the last time you used that?
I was actually tempted to bring it to the convention to use it one more time, but then I went, not enough space. I'm not carrying that helmet. I've got like 3 other bags. I don't need the helmet. I'll just wear the rest of the black outfit. Thanks. And even that I didn't get to because I didn't have enough time during the convention, so I I just did a hurried thing on my own while no one was around at like 3 in the morning. Well, next to no one was around. There's like about 3 or 4 people watching Doctor Who.
Oh, jeez.
But I had one viewing room that had nothing going on, so I'm like, okay, shoot footage in here. Split screen stuff, let's go.
Oh, Common Writer. But, yeah, going back to Godzilla, you know, if anyone has never seen the original Gojira that's listening to this, they need to do themselves a favor and actually, like, pick up the Criterion release that they did a year or two back. Like, it's amazing.
It's about a year or so, yeah. And then there's also the classic media version, which has some decent stuff. And
I got the classic media box set, which has Gojira, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Godzilla again. I think it's also got Gigantus on the same disc.
Yes.
There's Mothra versus Godzilla. Mothra versus Godzilla, Ghidorah the Three-Headed, All Monsters Attack, and Terror of Mechagodzilla.
You forgot Monster Zero, I think.
I don't think it has monsters. No, I remember. I remember it not having all three. Wait. Oh no, it has Monster Zero. It doesn't have. It doesn't have Destroy All Monsters. That's right. It has 2 Ghidorah movies, but not all 3. That's right.
Yeah. Not Destroy All Monsters. I don't think Classic Media can get their hands on that. That baby's too big.
Got you.
The people who probably have the rights to it probably want to keep the rights to it.
I pretty much see them as a trilogy. Like, if you look at the first 3 movies with Ghidorah in them, not only are they all crossovers, but none of them have Godzilla in the title. And I kind of think that was intentional. It wasn't really the Godzilla series until it picked up and Godzilla put out a ton of films after that. Because at that point, you know, Mothra versus Godzilla... Well, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster was as much a sequel to Mothra as it was Godzilla. And then it was also the first time Rodan got brought in. And at that point, then they start all these crossovers. So you have these 3 movies with Ghidorah, who's all of their enemy, which Godzilla's name is not in the title of any of them. I don't think you had Godzilla's name in the title of a Ghidorah movie until the Heisei Ghidorah movie, right?
Yeah, that one was actually, I believe, Godzilla versus King Ghidorah or something like that.
I'm not really sure if the titling thing is legit. I mean, you make a good point, but technically speaking, like, those movies would still be considered in Godzilla continuity. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it was still considered a Godzilla movie, even if it had multiple monsters or whatever.
Right.
Godzilla was
but
their
at the
star
same
vehicle.
time, because of the titles, you could also argue it's the King Ghidorah trilogy of the Godzilla.
That's where, I mean, I kind of have to look it up. Like, you look at Mothra versus Godzilla. Mothra was the first. He did have top billing there, and he was also the one who had been in a movie more recently. He had been in in his 1980s.
Yeah, but that was just coming off of King Kong versus Godzilla too, and in both those movies back to back, like, Godzilla is depicted as the bad guy. So I'm almost wondering if, like, you got second billing because you're supposed to be rooting for Kong, you're supposed to be rooting for Mothra, maybe.
Yeah, that's also a possibility too.
But like I kind of, especially with Ghidorah coming right after that, it really seems like they were just basically building up a shared universe where rather than one star monster, there's a bunch of popular monsters all fighting, and then finally Godzilla kind of surged ahead and was the one who got the big franchise.
Yeah, I mean, Godzilla was always their top moneymaker. I mean, Mothra did good business, Rodan did good business, but it was nothing like, the original Godzilla.
Yeah. And Gyros can never hold a thing on his own.
Anchors, I don't think
Paragon was always second banana to any monster, even Frankenstein.
Right.
Which, I mean, let's be frank, he was just a Godzilla clone, really. Paragon, that is.
Still, yeah. But still, the thing is that it's still a second banana to Frankenstein, who had like a total of 2 movies.
Well, Frankenstein was supposed to be the star of King Kong versus Godzilla, but they gave it to King Kong instead.
Yeah, that script got
Which
so messed up.
I think it had been a rights issue at the time. They couldn't get the rights fast enough or something.
No, it wasn't a rights issue because they bought Prometheus versus King Kong from John Beck, and the only reason why Toho wanted that script was because they wanted King Kong, so they dropped Frankenstein and put Godzilla in there, and then that Frankenstein project kind of wavered around a little bit. They were going to do Frankenstein versus the Human Vapor at one point, and then it became Frankenstein versus Godzilla, and they didn't like that, so then Frankenstein versus Godzilla became Frankenstein versus Baragon, and Frankenstein Conquers the World. And sorry for jumping in there and interrupting you. I wasn't trying to be like, oh, I'm a Mr. Know-it-all, but I'm going to be a douchebag.
No, you're showing off. You're showing off that you're a nerd and correcting us before we make ourselves into bigger fools.
I was ending my sentence with, I think I'm not 100% sure, so that was a perfect time for you to jump in.
But yeah, no, the whole Frankenstein thing is interesting. Just that the development of how that all came about.
So it was basically just them throwing a ton of ideas around, and the two that stuck were King Kong versus Godzilla and Frankenstein versus Baragon, amidst the storm of other ideas.
Yeah, I mean, it was a genesis. I actually think the original idea was Frankenstein versus the Human Vapor because for whatever reason, I think that Ishiro Honda was just really wanting to work with all the classic monsters. You know, he worked with King Kong, now let's work with Frankenstein. That didn't happen. Then he jumped on the opportunity for Prometheus versus King Kong or whatever it was. And, I don't know, it just...
Oh, God, could you just imagine Honda's take if they had done a Dracula?
You know, I don't think they did, but I know that Toho did do something that related to Dracula.
I would not be surprised.
They did. I'm trying to recall. I don't think Honda was involved. Lake of Dracula, that's what it was called. And no, it was directed by Nishio Yamamoto.
That name
I'm just imagining a giant Dracula fighting against Godzilla.
Have you seen Frankenstein Conquers the World?
Yes.
Yes.
I love that movie. I have an unhealthy obsession with that movie. It's stupid.
I actually watched War of the Gargantuas first,
Okay.
and then I found out that it was a sequel. As I was watching it and researching it, I realized that in Japan it was basically a sequel with alteration, whereas in the American they had kind of distanced it. So that was when I went and I forget if I had gone out and watched Frankenstein Conquers the World or if Matt had hooked me up with it for the sake of his show.
Right.
But I ended up I ended up watching it and writing and doing some comments with some cameos for that. But I kind of watched them backwards there. Oh, actually, the first movie I saw with Frankenstein was which one was it? Was it Tokyo? Whichever one had like the news person that was talking about all these different Toho monsters that were actually not part of the Godzilla, or not necessarily part of the Godzilla series. Do you remember which movie that was?
That's not ringing a bell at all.
Yeah.
They were like going down a list of monsters, and they were like, and Bigfoot Gyra, and they showed the green Gargantua. And that had kind of piqued my interest, and then I saw War of the Gargantuas and realized that was what that was connected to. And
that was in a Godzilla movie?
Yeah, it was. It was. I think it was one of the Mecha Godzilla films.
I was going to say, actually, that does sound familiar. Yeah, because I think you're right, because they were, they had combined like the history of like the Maser tanks and stuff like that. That does sound familiar. I haven't seen that movie in probably about 10 years, just because like I was not a fan of it at all. So, but I think you're absolutely correct in that. I would need to go back to watch it.
It's kind of fuzzy to me too, because I last watched Tokyo SOS probably 5 years ago, and then Godzilla against Mechagodzilla like 2 years after that.
Right.
And I'm thinking it was probably Tokyo SOS.
War of the Gargantuas Wikipedia.
I mean, Tokyo SOS even freaking had Space Amoeba in there as part of their continuity. It was bizarre
Yeah,
what they were picking and choosing to, like, oh yeah, this movie actually happened in this timeline.
basically a Toho it's like they were basically a Toho All-Stars, which would have made sense if they were making new movies with all of those monsters.
Well, it's like a Toho All-Stars with all the movies that nobody talked about anymore, you know?
But that's the thing, like, if they were making like a remake or a sequel to the Gargantua movies, it would have made perfect sense to shout it out in a Godzilla film. But instead, they shot a film with a monster that hadn't appeared on screen for 20 or more years just for the sake of saying his name.
Again, I think it's strictly just because of the whole Mazer connection, and they probably just did it because it's like, oh, hey, look, it's yeah.
By the way, Del Toro says that War of the Gargantuas is one of his favorite movies.
Yeah.
Oh, where was it now? I could have sworn there was something along those lines in the references and homages here too, but I can't find it.
War of the Gargantuas was a film. It was I was basically tapering off the Kaiju review show I was doing for several reasons. One was because I was juggling so many shows and a few other things. And one of the reviews that I was about 3/4 of the way through a War of the Gargantuas review. It was going to be the first non-Godzilla one. And I remember enjoying it so much. Like at the end, I had I had been describing the various things that they fight against. His brother, a giant octopus, and God from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, because of the scene where the sun is blinding him and everything.
Oh, okay, so here we go. Actually, it's part of the main article at the top of the Wikipedia. The film itself is rather vague as to where it falls at all into the actual continuity in the original Godzilla series. However, in more recent films, Toho has included it in the 2002's Godzilla against Mechagodzilla as being part of continuity, and also is the clip of the Green Gargantua is also used again in Final Wars. At the very opening, when we have history of giant monsters and so forth. So it's officially part of continuity
for that universe.
For the 2000s Millennium universe, yes.
I mean, continuity. When you're talking about the Millennium era Godzilla films, continuity is a strange word anyway.
Oh, there is no continuity. Like Godzilla against Mechagodzilla and Tokyo SOS are the only two movies that have continuity with each other.
Yeah, the rest aren't all supposed to be direct sequels to 1954.
Yep.
Like even although they tried to do that a bit with the Heisei films, but none of that worked because they also had the ongoing psychic plotline with Mickey that continued through the entire series, so you could not really separate those from each other like they seemed to want at times.
No, those were supposed to be all in continuity. Like they were all supposed to be sequels to each other, but the approach for the Millennium movies, like you just said, it was strictly the direct sequel, which I don't know, I guess makes for something different. It wasn't done before. I wasn't a big fan of it, but whatever.
But at the same time, it also ruins any continuity and makes you just scratch your head and go, well, what the hell's the point?
Yeah, exactly, because they never...
They were basically trying not to alienate fans who didn't have time to go out and buy, 30 other Godzilla movies in order to enjoy the new one, but... Which is, something that Warner Brothers likes to try to do. We're not going to go too far into that, because that could be a long time.
Continuities.
But yeah, it's...
But Godzilla did not go back in time and rip a hole in reality and all other kind of strange things, so... Exactly. So he did... I don't think he went back in time, his character did.
Some of the human characters did, and then they made him bigger. So that happens.
Yep.
Gotta love it.
And because of that, they also make another version of King Ghidorah. Yay!
That was one of the weirder ones.
It was still fun.
I still
It
need to
was.
see that.
It was. It's better than Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla.
Godzilla versus himself.
Again.
Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla was so weird watching it because I would have sworn, like, if I had just picked it up and popped it in a DVD player, I would have sworn that it was a Showa era film just from looking at it. And then as you realize that it's part of the continuity with the Heisei films, it's like, really? Because it just seems so, so out there.
It feels like it's such a golden/silver age comic booky idea.
It's like you have the giant toy as, what was the name of that? Was it Young Godzilla? No, I'm talking about. It was Baby Godzilla in the film.
Little
before,
Godzilla is what you're talking about.
Little Godzilla. There we go.
Yeah, Baby Godzilla. Yes.
And they kept changing his name every film at that time. So yeah, Little Godzilla, which was basically an almost Godzilla-sized toy, which was really weird in itself. And then there's crystals all over the place. And this was kind of a strange film.
It's really weird how, like, all the Heisei movies, like, it's like the Showa, like, all 20 years worth of the Showa series just condensed down to, like, the 7 or 8 films that it takes place in. Starts off all dark and serious, and generally gets more lighthearted in the end, and then all of a sudden it's, like, all dark and serious again, and that's the last movie.
Yeah.
You know?
It's the last one, Destroya. Oh my word!
I gotta say, every time I watch Godzilla vs. Destroya, I want the toy of that Godzilla.
Burning Godzilla?
Yeah. The nuclear Godzilla.
Dude, it's like, awesome.
Every time I watch it, I want like a 30-inch figure of it.
They have them. You're going to drop a pretty penny for them, but they do have them.
Yeah.
Does it glow? Does it have working lights?
There's one that does, and in fact, there's one that my buddy had that was freaking awesome. You put batteries in it, you wind it up, and it's walking and it's roaring and stuff. But there's a little heater inside the chest, and it starts off looking like a normal Godzilla. But as it heats up, the vinyl changes, and it changes into this orange color, and
It's like whatever they use for mood rings. Is it like it's like whatever they use for mood rings or whatever?
That I don't know. I just know that whatever it was, and it wasn't like burning hot or anything, but it was fairly warm. So whatever the color changing vinyl was, it worked pretty well.
Yeah, that's why I say that it changes color without being, without actually melting. So it's got to be something fairly similar to that.
Yeah, awesome toy. And if you can ever pick up like the SH Monster Arts version of Burning Godzilla. It's a really beautiful toy. I don't have it personally, but it's amazing. Really, really cool. Or if you can pick up the Bandai, the 1995 one, that thing's about a foot tall and pretty nice.
Yeah, the foot tall one, like the one I have right now, only actually has the cool stuff. Darn it!
Do you have the 95 Bandai?
No, I have. God, what are you? What version are you, anyways? I have that foot long. I have that 12-inch Godzilla, but what is this? 2007.
Oh, so you have like a Bandai Creation one?
Yeah, I have a Bandai Godzilla, the 12-inch Godzilla that I have here, but I want to say he's the Final Wars version, but I can't be totally sure.
You probably, you picked it up here, right? Like
the United States. I believe I got it like a convention, I believe.
Yeah, it's a nice toy. Definitely a nice toy.
Oh yeah,
the ones that they released here, there's a Burning Godzilla as well that is really nice.
I don't think I ever saw it. Actually, I saw the box over there. I wanted to pick up the Gigan though.
It's beautiful, dude.
I want the 12-inch Gigan yet. Then I'll feel that my 12-inch toys are complete. I want that Gigan, damn it. Because that was an awesome remake. That was an awesome remodeling for Gigan.
I dug it. It got
speaking
ridiculous
of remodeling, we had mentioned Mogera earlier. I haven't watched the original film with Mogera, but just from what I've heard of of the origin, it seems kind of a very strange choice of what to make as the next Mechagodzilla at the time.
You're talking about the Mysterians, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a strange choice, so I'll definitely give you that.
And I do believe that the director, I believe, wanted to use a Mechagodzilla instead of Mogira, but Toho, I believe, someone at Toho, when the higher ups said, "No, we want Mogira for whatever bizarre reason. We want Mogira."
It wasn't specifically that they wanted Mogira; it's that they didn't want to have two Godzillas versus one Godzilla, so they made him pick something smaller.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think you're right, Matt, about that. I remember hearing about that, and also, Bill, yeah, you're correct on that too. Yeah, so you haven't seen the Mysterians, Bill?
I haven't, no.
Oh.
Have you seen it, Matt?
I have a box set with the Mysterians, Varan, and Matango.
That's a nice box set.
Yes. I had yet to watch Matango all the way through, but I watched the other two.
What I'm trying to get on DVD is the original Japanese Rodan, because I can get the English off of Netflix, but not the Japanese.
Oh, dude, that
classic media
really
set.
Easy to find. Yeah.
Classic media set with Rodan, and what was the other one?
War of the Gargantuas.
Yeah, War of the Gargantuas, yeah.
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon for like $10.39.
Want me to send you a link, Bill?
No, I can.
Someone in this group is associated with Amazon.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, in that case. Well, I can follow the link. I can follow the link from your blog anyway. But I need.
Yeah, I believe I do have it on my blogger.
I need to remember that because I do impulse purchases on Amazon all the time. Like,
dude, keep going to my blogger. I have a list. I'm gradually updating it once in a while.
It's a really nice DVD set. Again, you already know how the classic media DVDs are.
Oh yeah.
Box set, but Rodan is one of my favorites.
Pulling off the box set that he happens to own. Has Rodan, both English and Japanese versions. War of the Gargantuas, English and Japanese versions. Mostly just changes in subtitles and dialogue, but there are noticeable changes here and there. Actually, I think there's
Sanda versus Gyro.
I think there's actually a noticeable difference in quality for the Rodan movies. Actually,
I wouldn't be surprised.
The American one looks muddier.
I know there was a good amount of re-editing done for the American version, so.
As I recall, the English Rodan version is a lot muddier, and they just tinted a lot of browns. It just looks nasty.
I do remember there being a lot of brown, so yeah.
Dubbed U.S. English version, uncut Japanese English subtitles, also original documentary bringing Godzilla down to size.
Which is pretty good.
Yes, we get all three of the main actors for Godzilla in one thing. As well as a few other special effects behind the scenes sort of stuff, too.
And a giant octopus, which I'm not sure how many Toho movies that appeared in. The next one I know of a giant octopus appearing in is Godzilla.
King Kong versus Godzilla, and technically the alternate ending for Matt, say it.
Frankenstein Conquers the World, as well as the opening for...
in terms of after War of the Gargantuas.
I don't think it appeared anymore, like in legit Toho things.
Like legit Toho movies, I don't know that it appeared after Gargantuas. That's pretty much the end of the octopus there.
Which is funny because on the internet, Japan is largely known for its octopi, octopodes, and squids.
They're when did God Monster from Space come out? I thought it was 1970. I mean, you had a giant squid appear in a later Toho movie, or actually, it's not a squid; it's a cuttlefish. It's still a cephalopod, right?
They call it a cuttlefish, but you don't want to cuddle with it. Sounded like a pity laugh.
It may have been, Bill. It may have. Oh God, what's this? What's this? What the hell is that? Oh my God! That looks like the most epic fighting game there should ever be.
What are you talking about?
A picture I found that's on the stream right now. Let's see here. What all is there? There's Ultraman 7, Ultraman, one of the more recent Ultraman. I can't remember which one.
Kind of
Maybe
look like
Gaia.
Mugen to me.
Looks
Yeah,
like
mine-
Gaia, but I can't remember for sure. There's Gamera in there. There's Anguirus in there. There's Godzilla. Ape-like creature, so I can almost claim King Kong there. Mothra Dan, Mechagodzilla, and one of the monsters from Ultraman. I can't think of his name right now. Oh.
But yeah, the graphics look like Mugen to me.
They look... Yeah, Mugen, yeah.
However you pronounce it.
Up here in the north, we call it Mugen, okay?
Mugen.
Make your own fighting game! But yeah, it looks like Super Nintendo graphics. It's just like, okay, that's all kinds of epic, I want that game now. It's like every fighting game franchise ever made with giant monsters in one spot. Yeah. Well, that's kind of an epic picture too. A picture of Godzilla bathed in flames is a good picture.
Exactly.
Ah. So yeah. Oh yeah. So we've kind of covered the American and Japanese versions. So Godzilla. Bill, you seem to be the expert on this one, actually.
I have watched it 3 times this summer.
3 times.
I've watched it more or less partially most of the way through. Once.
That's really something that deserves a full episode on its own, really. But
Oh, almost.
it's a very interesting film, and that's putting it very lightly.
Well, when you introduce snuff footage into a Godzilla movie...
Yes. This is very true. This is probably the only Godzilla film to actually include real dead bodies.
I hear voices in the background.
Yes, I do. It sounds like a video of some sort. I don't know.
Sorry about that.
No, we were just kind of wondering. But, yeah. Yeah, weren't those from the bombings? I think that
at least some of it. The opening is the Hiroshima bombing. There's also footage from, I believe, the firebombing of Tokyo, as well as generic World War II newsreel footage. For example, pretty much any scene where something is destroyed, they include multiple shots from World War II of similar things being destroyed. If not, then they cut in footage from other films of things being destroyed. Such as when Godzilla steps on a train, they show, as far as you can tell, Godzilla is hunting down every train in the Tokyo area and destroying them or convincing them to crash with one another. He also demolishes a fleet large enough that you can only assume that this is an alternate universe where Japan won World War II.
just about.
And it's all cut from Godzilla King of the Monsters because Koji was not able to get a cut of the original Gojira for whatever reason. Toho did not have it available to give to him when he was making this.
It's weird.
I think they were kind of going, we don't know what this crazy man's up to, and we're not sure we want to let him. I think was the general reaction, probably.
I don't know.
And then there's the Technicolors.
The colors, the soundtrack. Very strange film. I mean, you can kind of like, if you're used to watching enough black and white films, you can kind of ignore the colors. Just like if I'm watching like Dracula, or I forget if it was Dracula or whichever, like you kind of sometimes don't even notice the colors in those films. But whereas there, it's like, you know, a faded brown or a purple. Here, it's, you know, a Skittles bag poured over the negative is what it kind of seems like at times.
Or as I believe the original reviewer that we saw that made you interested in finding the sucker, it's essentially a car-filled acid trip.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I didn't get that impression when I watched Ed Glacier's review, but when I actually saw it on my TV screen, I could really see what he was talking about. Like, the still images and video and review clips do not do this justice. You've got to actually see it in full size to really appreciate the weirdness and trippiness of it.
And I quote from the abridged version of Hellsing yet again. What's that? What are those? And what the hell's this?
The soundtrack is also effective enough to give you memories of drug trips that you never had in the first place.
Happens to me all the time.
Like living inside a bong.
It's like, if you say Godzilla versus the Smog Monsters trippy, I don't think it holds a candle to this.
Ah, the Italians.
I'll need to see it sometime.
Which is kind of furthered by the fact that it's hopping between footage of various movies as though it were playing hopscotch.
But yeah, actually, yeah, is there I wonder if I can actually find some images.
I'm sure you
How
can
do you
find
spell it
images.
again?
Cozzilla is the general spelling.
Cozzilla?
Yeah.
There we go. Oh my god. Yeah, there's even a DVD cover over here. Yep. There, that's definitely a Godzilla cover. Dead bodies and everything too. That's nice. Put dead bodies on the back of your DVD.
I'll probably print that out when I get a DVD case for mine.
Yay for illegitimate copies. Does this mean that this is the only version of Godzilla that's public domain?
It's not public domain, but there's no legal, like, at one point it was on Google Video, but it got taken down, I'm pretty sure. Because it's still, like, owned by Toho, but it was never legitimately released, so, which, you know, it's kind of like the Star Wars Holiday Special, except Lucasfilms lets their black sheep be aired on YouTube, and Toho doesn't. Although, who knows, Disney might start taking down holiday special videos off of YouTube. I don't know.
True.
Yeah, I can't put anything past Disney these days. Yeah, look. And a very blurry Raymond Burr. I like the fact that in the subtitles they still call him Steve.
Those subtitles were added by whoever made that video, by the way. I mean, that still image, by the way, because I'm fairly certain that there is no copy of the film that actually has the subtitles in it. I mean, if there is, actually, the Google, they might have done that for the Google Video version that got taken down, but the DDR copy that's been floating around doesn't have it. So it's basically watch it either with the American version on standby or with enough knowledge of the film that you don't need the dialogue. Or no Italian, obviously, is the third alternative. If you know Italian, you don't need subtitles.
Yeah, not learning Italian anytime soon, I think. Okay. But yeah, just odd.
There's some really strange images that came up on that search.
Yeah, I'll
Nothing
say.
to know.
It's like, what the... Okay,
I mean,
backing up the
strange,
top!
the ones you were looking for were strange enough, but there are other ones that are even stranger choices.
And what's with this? A gray Godzilla, a brown Godzilla, and two other little Godzillas. Okay.
That's just Godzilla toys someone bought. I mean, considering the original Godzilla was supposed to be gray and was marketed in posters as green, there's no shortage of colors of Godzilla figures.
But brown?
When you're doing a black and white film, why not brown? You know, that's how I would see it anyway. I'm kind of surprised that there's not an Italian one based off of Godzilla that's like yellow or pink or something.
Actually, I did have a pink model of Godzilla at one point.
Jeez.
Then there's what looks like a cheaper version of the Destroyer Godzilla, which is all orange. At least I'm assuming that's what inspired that particular figure.
Well,
wow.
gents, I hate to do this, but I think I'm actually going to have to head out not too long here.
Well, actually, I think we're kind of coming to a close on this subject,
Yeah,
too.
that's about a good time to wrap this up.
So, alrighty then. So I guess that's our episode for this week.
Yep, so we'll be seeing you around and go out and watch Godzilla and Godzilla King of the Monsters, whether you have already or not.
And Godzilla, if you can find it. Search for about 70 hours. Bill guarantees that.
Not easy to find.
See you all next time.
It's about as easy to find as the Star Wars Holiday Special was before YouTube.